Allie Parnell here. One thing that I often see with new businesses is they get very overwhelmed with the legalities that they need to have on their websites. I have a special guest today, Jo Magliocco, and she manages the YouTube channel Square Basics, and she is also a web designer and branding expert. She holds a paralegal degree, so this uniquely positions her to understand the legal needs of us online entrepreneurs. At the end of this video, you should feel mentally prepared to tackle the legal requirements for your website and have the tools to make it happen. All right, let's dive in. Hey, Jo, thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to dig into some legal stuff.
Can we talk a little bit about mindsets and what you feel like holds people back from getting their legalities set up?
Yeah, definitely. Setting up the legal stuff of a website can be pretty intimidating. I usually see kind of three mindsets that I think hold people back from setting up the legal aspects of their site, and they're pretty straightforward. And as a web designer, honestly, I've experienced all three and still do. And they would be one, being afraid of making a mistake in our legal documents. Two, just being afraid of losing business because of, legal jargon or different disclosures that you have to have on your site for sponsorships. And the third one is just pure overwhelm. Like there's just a long list of things that you have to do. And so it can be overwhelming to the point of not even starting.
Oh my gosh, I can totally relate to all three of those. I think especially the fear of making a mistake.
I think it's one of the biggest fears when it comes to legal stuff. We want to make sure we know what we're signing, and it can be really terrifying to dig into legal documents if we don't have a legal background. Really, the best thing is just to have something up, because even if 90% of your contract isn't valid, the other 10% is likely still going to stand and do something good for your business. And it can always be interpreted by the legal system. So it's just better to cover your base and know that it's okay if it's not perfect. We don't expect everybody to be a lawyer and to use exact terminology. But especially with small businesses, if there is a legal issue, it usually ends up in small claims court, or just your policy needs to be adjusted and you can hire a lawyer to help you out. And in both of those cases, you're not going to be penalized for having something that isn't perfect.
So even if people are choosing to write their own contracts, we shouldn't be so afraid, because our effort to try to have all the pieces in place is going to be seen favorably.
Absolutely.
Talk to me a little bit more about the fear of losing customers because of the disclosures.
Yeah, so this is something that most often comes up with bloggers, but it can come up with businesses as well, especially now that more business software that's geared towards small businesses is offering affiliate programs and different ways that you can earn income by promoting their product. And so where this comes in is people are often afraid of being legally compliant because they think it's going to hurt their viewers, their clicks, and the income that they make from that. Which it honestly doesn't in most cases. People see it favorably when you're disclosing that, like, hey, I do make money off of this, but I really am recommending it because it's my true opinion. I use the product and, I really believe in this. It adds value to me and my business. And so I want you to try it. And when you disclose them properly, and when I say properly, I mean like you have to make a very clear disclosure, but not like a general disclosure that covers blanket everything at the bottom of your website. It has to, when you're talking about sponsored or affiliate or any other type of, free product that you received or things like that. Typically, even though people are afraid to sometimes disclose, thinking that, people aren't going to buy things if they know they're sponsored, at this point, everyone assumes that about the internet anyways.
Yeah.
So it's better to disclose and have people view you as an honest person versus be afraid to lose that one click and not follow the proper legal requirements.
That makes sense. That's good. And then the last and final one is overwhelm. So you're talking about how overwhelm tends to hold people back from actually doing anything about their legalities.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest hang up and the most normal. It happens in a lot of other instances throughout our lives for most people.
So true.
A super sizable task or kind of a daunting list of things to do. And a lot of it does come down to mindset and the way that you're planning. And thankfully, that is something that you're covering in the video for my channel.
Why don't we just plug my video right now? So you guys, if you feel overwhelmed by getting the legalities set up on your website or really anything else, you need to go check out the video that I'm doing for Jo on her channel. We will link it below. In that video, I'm going to be talking about the planning process that you need to have, going to talk about mindsets, and just make sure that you are giving yourself enough time to make these things happen without getting overwhelmed.
It's better to have something than nothing. Just like with websites, we say launched is better than perfect. So get it out there, and you can always tweak it as you go.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. I like that mindset, like both of like done is better than perfect, but then also like you can tweak it as you go. And that's something that I think in my own contracts and stuff, I feel like I'm like, oh, I have to like think of all the potential things in the future because I never want to have to touch them again. And so I'm like trying to like fine tune and nitpick all these things about them where it's really like, I just need to send it out into the world and let it be free. And then I can just like add things to it as we go. So I like that idea that it's like an ever evolving thing in your business and it's not just this one and done situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's dive in now to the actual practical things that we need to have on our websites in order to be truly compliant with the law.
Okay. So before I jump in, the one thing I do have to say is I am not a licensed attorney, so this is not legal advice. I always recommend checking with an attorney or when you have the budget, having them actually draft your policies for you for your website. So just getting that out of the way, now I can hop into my list. The must-do legal steps really come down to policies and then your web design itself. And so I'll kind of break that into the two sections. For policies, it would be, copyright, privacy policy, a terms of use, and a return policy if it's a commerce business. And then on the design side, it's having a cookie notice or banner, adding your disclosures for sponsorships and affiliate links in the right place, and then having your opt-ins be GDPR compliant. And those kind of fall into as you're designing pages. And that's the thing that's most being updated because you're constantly adding new opt-ins or changing your design.
Are there any of these that are what I'll call static, where once you create them, you don't have to look at them again? Or do we need to constantly be checking in on these?
Mm-hmm. For the most part, your cookie banner, once you get that up, and your policies, once those are written, you don't have to touch unless you're basically changing the type of business or the way that you run your website. And so those are kind of a one and done, and then just review them every couple of years and maybe, improve them a little bit, or if anything's changed, make those updates.
Awesome. So you're talking about the copyright notice and copyright policy. Tell us a little bit more about the purpose of that.
Yeah, so in most cases, people don't even realize this exists because it's often built into the same page as the privacy policy or the terms of use, or kind of sneakily linked somewhere on that page. But basically, the copyright policy works two ways. A lot of times you're explaining what the fair use is that you want to license your work under. So how you're licensing your blog posts, your images, whether it's okay for people to share them or how much they're allowed to share.
Okay.
That sort of falls into the Creative Commons licensing. And this is a place where you don't have to use legal jargon. You can just use normal words to say, it's okay if you want to share one sentence from my post with one photo. If you want to use more than that, please get in touch. Usually this is something I put in the footer of the website, and it's really easy to clearly easy to read. And it's something that they will see on every single page, every single post. And you can even write a little copyright notice at the bottom of every blog post if content stealing is something you're super worried about. And so that's a great place to put it. All the policies I usually put in the website footer, either on one page if they're short or on multiple pages linked there. And the copyright policy also addresses one other thing, which is your use of other people's work. And so that's another thing to address, whether you're using Creative Commons images that you pulled off of a website like Unsplash, or you're quoting people or embedding a tweet from someone, or however you're using other people's work. You have to make sure that you give them a way to report to you if they feel that you've posted it incorrectly or are violating their copyright. That is to follow, it's called DMCA, Digital Millennium Copyright Act. And every business is supposed to have a designated agent that you actually register with the Copyright Office as the agent for your company. And I'll make sure that there's a link for everyone to do this. Basically, as the registered agent, you're the person that people can report to and give a report to and say, hey, I think you violated my copyright when you posted this, picture of me on your website. Can you please take it down? And then they have a legal requirement to report it to you before reporting it to any like agency or trying to get it taken down another way. And it just lets other creators know, like, hey, I'm aware of the laws. I'm trying my best to follow legal practices. I respect this Copyright Act and I respect everybody's work, just like I want you to respect mine.
That's good. That's really good. Was there anything else that you wanted to add about the copyright notice or policies?
The one thing I would say is don't pull images off of Google. That's the number one issue I see. No Google searching and dragging images and using those on your website.
Yes.
Not allowed.
Yes, that is a big no-no. Okay, so let's talk a bit about cookie banners.
Yeah, so it's something that people have probably seen popping up a lot more recently because of the new GDPR requirements for EU citizens. But basically, it's a little notice that pops up on your website that says, hey, we use cookies, we're tracking all of this information. Click OK if that's all right for us to do, or so that you acknowledge that by visiting our website, we're going to track this information about you. And even if you don't think you have like crazy tracking tools, you haven't gone through steps to set those up, most website platforms have something built in. So it's really crucial to have that. Like I know in my case, I use Squarespace. They have great built-in analytics that go as far as tracking the IP address of every single user and telling me what page they clicked on. And so I absolutely need consent for that if I'm going to allow those built-in analytics to work. And same goes for Wix, Weebly, WordPress, any other platform you're building on.
I guess diving right into the GDPR, share a bit about that, please.
It's something that everyone is having to adjust to this year with 2018 in May being when we made the switch to everything needing to be GDPR compliant. And it just means approaching consent for opt-ins in a little bit of a different way, in that you aren't allowed to force people to opt into your general mailing list in return for some good, like some freebie. And so you can still do freebies and opt-ins, but the idea is that you're adding people to the list for that item versus just adding people to your general, like if you have one general announcement list that you send out mailing like emails to, then you need to make sure that you're getting consent for them to join that particular list and that they give it freely and not because you've coerced them. So you just have to add a separate checkbox or a separate way for them to indicate or opt out of on any other correspondence you're going to send. And that's for lead magnets specifically. Obviously, you have like a general email opt-in next to your blog. That's a different case in which you just have to make sure that you're, again, not like automatically subscribing people who land on your website. As long as it's just a normal opt-in, then you're fine. And then the last bit is obviously giving people a way to opt out.
So we're almost through this list. So let's jump down into policies now.
These are, again, the things that are linked at the bottom of your site, a lot of times with the copyright notice being on one of those. Return policy, only if you have commerce is that really important. And you just, pretty much everywhere, you have to have a return policy legally posted, even if it's that you don't take returns. So important to have something there. Terms of use is just what people are agreeing to by using your website. So I'm agreeing to have you store my information. I'm agreeing that I'm not going to be that I'm not a minor, because a lot of times websites aren't meant for minors and they can't be on them. I'm agreeing that I'm not going to post inappropriate or lewd things in the comments on your site, or that you can take it down if I do. So general terms like that. And there are a lot of terms of use and privacy policy generators that websites have for you to just spit out a free standard contract. And so those are great tools to use for this, just to cover all your bases. And then privacy is the same thing. It goes back to data protection. So this is where, in addition to that cookie banner, you actually list out in detail the types of marketing data that you're collecting from people and how you use it. Do you give it to other companies? So like in my case, I use MailChimp for my emails. So when people are agreeing to my privacy policy on my site, they're agreeing that I'm going to give all of their emails and names to MailChimp, and then it's up to MailChimp to store those properly. And it's not my fault if they have a data breach and people's names and emails get out.
Gotcha. So that's a huge protection for you as a business owner, is to have that privacy policy and just say, this is what I'm doing, this is who I'm sharing your stuff with.
Yeah, it gives you that sort of permission to use it the way that you plan to use it. And so people know also, they obviously have a way then to see exactly how you're using their information and make an informed decision about whether or not they want to give you, their credit card, their email. And
do you have good resources for where people can find some free templates?
Yeah, absolutely. I can provide a couple different links for free templates. I know Shopify in particular, if you have e-commerce, have really great ones, and they even have an option. If you don't have a site with them, that's totally fine. You can just pop in and say, I just want the policy, and they'll write them for you.
Great. That's awesome. Now that we've gone through all of the important pieces that we need, can you share super briefly what you think the number one thing is people should start with, and then a good timeline to try to complete all of these by?
Absolutely. So the policies, I think, are the number one thing to start with. I would not launch a website without at least like a minor page with an outline of the copyright, privacy, terms of use. That's something that you want to have up from day one. And so when you're designing your website, it's just as simple as having a blank page with the words on them. And that's absolutely like number one, get it done. Making sure over time that your design is compliant through disclosures, through GDPR friendly opt-ins, and just making sure that that's more of a maintenance level.
Gotcha.
And, not to say that if you don't have it now, you're going to be in huge trouble, but it takes 2 seconds. Just go get the policies from a generator and get them up.
Well, thank you, Jo, so much for joining us today. And thank you, viewers, for watching to the end of this video. Congratulations if you did, because that is a lot of stuff. So make sure that you go ahead and grab the download that we have for you in the description below. It's going to be super helpful. It's going to run through it's going to be a checklist of all the things that Jo was talking about. And make sure now you go over to Jo's channel and check out the video that I did for her on actually breaking things down and planning things in a way that's not overwhelming and that feels really good. And let me know in the comments below, what did you get out of this video? What was the most eye-opening thing or surprising thing that you learned today? So that's all for now. Hope you have a great day. Bye.